Hey guys, this is Jake, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use wood blocks. Okay, so this is my long-awaited video. Yay! No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm going to be using my SPG as an example. It's not actually bent or torqued or anything, so it's just an example. All right. So say you're cutting, you have an accident, you bend your sword. It's not the end of the world. Why? Because you built some wood blocks to fix your sword. Now wood blocks are very, very handy because they can pretty much fix bends anywhere on a sword, and it's not as dangerous as using the hands and bending it back on your knee. Okay, and wood blocks can also fix torques. Um, so if you have a torqued blade and you want to try to fix it, build some of these. All right, so let's go for the first example where you have a bent blade. To check for a bent blade, you eyeball down the spine of the blade. Okay, don't look at the edge. Look at the spine because it's easier to tell if the blade has bends or wobbles from the to the left, to the right, or even like a S curve. Okay, sometimes bends can get that bad. But anyways, look down the spine and make sure you know where the bend is oriented. Okay, so if I'm looking at the spine of the blade and there's a bend that's going to the right, all right. So if I look at the spine of the blade, the bend is going to the right. Now if I turn the sword over, where is the bend? The bend is to your left now. Okay, it's not at the right anymore. It's at the left if you're looking with the edge up. All right, and whenever you use wood blocks, you never put the sword edge down. Okay, you always put the sword into the wood blocks with the edge up. Okay, so should look like this. All right, and obviously try to do it on like carpet or some soft material if you're working on your sword, so that way you don't really scratch it up. Okay, so we established that with the edge up, the bend is facing towards the left. All right, so if I put the sword with the handle facing to my right, and I put the sword in the wood blocks, the bend now is facing towards me. All right, and in order to get it out, say it's a bend right here, pretty much right at the middle of the blade. So what I do is I get my first wood block and I place it behind where the bend starts. Let's say the bend is right here, then I put the wood block pretty much just behind it. And my second wood block, depending on how far the bend goes, I would, I would place the wood block until where the bend ends. If it's a sharp bend, then it's okay to leave some room like this. Okay, so say it's a sharp bend right here. Then what I do, since it's facing towards me, I get the wood blocks and I push them away from each other. Okay, and what that does is you're forcing the blade to bend out away from you. So then you're rebending the sword back to straight. Okay, so you want to do it a little bit at a time. Go for a little bit. Don't use a lot of strength, obviously, otherwise you snap your sword or your wood blocks, and that's not a good thing. Okay, so go a little bit at a time. So use like 1, 2, 3 small pushes, and depending on the severity of the bend, up your power, and constantly check the blade. So once the sword is straight, then what you want to do is have the sword with the edge up and check if the blade is torqued. Now, checking for a torqued blade is a little bit harder because you have to have the right light. It can't be too bright. You gotta have a little bit of a shadow. So the best place to do it is somewhere inside where you get some medium amount of light. Usually sunlight is works really well in a room. And the trick for me is I try to have it where one side has light, the other side has shadow, so that way I can clearly see the edge and whether or not it has torques or not. Okay, so if it has a torque, it'll go like this, and then it'll, go out to either side. Now to fix a torque, let's pretend the torque is facing to the right. So it's going like this and it's going out to the right. Okay? So if that happens and I place the sword in the wood blocks, okay? Same thing. The rear block, I place it behind the torque. The front block, I try to place it in front of the torque if possible. And remember what I said? If I hold the sword edge up and it's torqued out this way, what I have to do is I have to re-torque the blade and have it come back towards me. Okay, so that's where I want to put my force. So I'm not going to lift the wood blocks up like this. Why? Because I'm only helping the torque go that way and I could break the blade. So I work the opposite way. The bend's facing that way, so I bring it in towards me. Okay, so I actually use the wood block like this and I re-torque the blade. One important thing to keep in mind, whenever you're working with torques, always try to make sure that your wood blocks, they stay parallel to each other. Okay? That's very, very important. Otherwise, even if you fix a torque, but then your wood blocks are off at an angle as you fix the torque, guess what happens? You fix the torque, but then you put in a bend as well. Okay, so that means you have to go through a couple more cycles of this, and you have to do it properly in order to get a perfectly straight blade. Okay, so always after fixing the torque, always check to see if the blade is bent again. Okay, because if you fix the torque, sometimes even if you worked properly by resetting the torque so that the edge part is straight, sometimes that moves around the metal a little bit, and you can end up with small bend on the sword. Okay, and you have to remember that sometimes the manufacturers, they actually manufacture swords with torques in them, so fixing them is extremely difficult. But the basic process of checking and maintaining your sword is check to see if it's bent, check to see if it's torqued, and after you fix those two issues, check to see if it's bent again. Okay? So those are 3 steps. So check if it's bent, check if it's torqued, check if it's bent after you fix your sword. And yeah, so that's the basics of how to use your wood blocks. I highly recommend them. It's pretty simple and cheap to build, and it's a lot safer than trying to bend it on your knee.